Welcome to another deep dive, everybody.
It's excited to be here.
This is one of those times we are diving into excerpts that you've shared from Journey from Heartache to Hope.
Yes,
This book recounts your family's story.
it does.
And wow, what a story it is.
It's a powerful title.
Yeah.
And it really sets the stage for the intertwining stories of resilience,
Yeah.
faith, and unexpected love that we're going to uncover.
What's so fascinating to me is how the book is structured.
Yeah.
It's not a typical linear narrative.
Right.
We get to experience both Chris and Mary Alice's individual stories of heartache before their paths converge.
Yeah, and I think that structure really mirrors life,
Right.
doesn't it? We all walk our own paths facing challenges
Yeah.
and finding our own sources of strength. And sometimes those paths intersect in ways we could never have predicted.
Exactly.
What are some of the key elements that jumped out at you?
Well, you have this incredible thread running through the book.
Okay.
A mysterious family inheritance
Uh-huh.
that spans generations and continents.
Wow.
Then there's this harrowing escape from a Siberian prison camp.
Right.
And ultimately a love story
Oh, wow.
that begins amidst a terminal cancer diagnosis.
Yeah, talk about a roller coaster of emotions.
Talk about it.
It's like each story on its own
Yeah.
has enough drama for a whole book.
For sure.
But woven together, they create this tapestry
Right.
of resilience and hope.
Yeah. Personal history with spiritual reflection. That's a really powerful combination, I think.
Yeah, and the sources we're looking at today, they start with the author kind of reflecting back on her family history. And in particular, this ancestor named Sir Pee Straski.
Now, that name sounds familiar. Wasn't he like a prominent explorer and scientist?
You got it.
Okay.
Yeah, he was very renowned in his time, and the author even hints at like a potential inheritance tied to him. But then what's interesting is how this potential for material wealth
Right.
is contrasted with her grandfather's wartime experiences.
That contrast you just mentioned there makes me think about that biblical concept of storing up treasures in heaven.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not just about material versus spiritual wealth, is it? It seems like the grandfather's story might offer us a little bit more nuanced understanding of what actually constitutes true treasure.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. The sources paint this really vivid picture of the grandfather's time as a prisoner of war in Siberia.
Wow.
Talk about harsh conditions and an uncertain future. And amidst all of that, though, his focus remains on his family,
Right.
survival, and holding onto his moral compass. It really makes you wonder what truly matters, when you're stripped of everything else.
It's really fascinating to me here that despite all those hardships, the sources really emphasize this unwavering hope he had, this hope of returning to his family.
Yeah, it's almost like that hope became his most valuable possession, even more so than any potential inheritance.
Absolutely. It reminds me of the Apostle Paul, who faced imprisonment, beatings, shipwrecks, but never lost his faith or his hope. And the grandfather's story really echoes that same resilience. It makes you realize even in the darkest moments, hope can be this incredibly powerful force.
Yeah, so true. And speaking of powerful forces, the way the grandfather eventually escaped Siberia is just wild. He received help from this Russian family that risked their own safety to aid him.
Wow. That's remarkable. It says so much about the unexpected places where kindness and compassion can emerge, even amidst conflict and hardship.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Like, how often do we miss opportunities to extend that same kind of grace to others? But, this tale of escape isn't the end of the story. There's a kind of bittersweet element, too. Despite this incredible journey, the grandfather was never able to find his family after the war.
Oh.
And get this, he lost a precious letter that he had received from the Queen of England.
Oh, wow.
This letter that held immense sentimental value to him.
That's heartbreaking. It really highlights that reality that even amidst triumphs, life can throw some devastating curveballs. This loss, coupled with the separation from his family, seems to mirror some of the experiences of biblical figures like Job, who endured unimaginable suffering, or Jeremiah, who faced constant rejection and persecution.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder that loss and disappointment are unfortunately part of the human experience, even for those who demonstrate incredible faith and resilience.
Absolutely. But the grandfather's response to these losses is also really insightful. He continued to hold on to his faith, and while he certainly grieved, he ultimately found solace in trusting God's plan.
Yeah, and that trust, that unwavering faith, it's something that he passed down to his daughter and eventually to the author as well. It's amazing to see how these experiences, as difficult as they were, had this ripple effect across generations.
It really highlights the concept of generational impact. Our choices, our faith, how we respond to adversity, it all has consequences that extend far beyond ourselves.
So you're saying even our struggles can become a part of a legacy, something that shapes future generations.
I think so. And that's a powerful thought and makes you really consider the kind of legacy you're building with your own life. Speaking of legacies, though, the sources go on to offer some really practical advice on how to live a life that pleases God.
Oh, I'm all ears. After hearing the grandfather's story, I'm very curious to hear what wisdom we can glean from his experience and apply to our own lives.
Well, one of the most prominent themes is this idea of never giving up, of trusting God, even when things are incredibly tough.
Yeah.
And it's not just a passive trust. It's about cultivating this habit of consistent prayer, seeking his guidance in every situation.
So you're saying it's about actively seeking a relationship with God, not just relying on blind faith.
Exactly. The more we communicate with God, the more we study his word, the deeper our understanding of his character and his will for our lives becomes.
Right.
And that deeper understanding brings this sense of peace and strength that can carry us through any storm.
That makes a lot of sense. You know, Chris Pierkowski puts it this way.
Okay.
He says that God heals whom he pleases and does everything for a reason. It really emphasizes trusting in God's timing, even when things don't make sense to us.
Right. That's a really valuable point. We often want to understand the why behind our trials, but sometimes it's about surrendering to the mystery of God's plan and trusting that he is working all things for good.
It's like we have to let go of our need to control everything and just lean into his wisdom. Chris also emphasizes the importance of being joyful in hope, patient in affliction, and faithful in prayer. It's like a roadmap for navigating these difficult seasons.
Absolutely. And it's not just about individual resilience. It's about recognizing the power of community. Chris talks about the importance of reaching out to your church and community for support, finding wise and caring individuals who can offer encouragement and accountability.
It's like we're reminded that we weren't designed to go through life's trials alone. We need that support system, that sense of belonging that comes from being a part of a loving community.
It's about living out the love and compassion that Christ has shown us.
Yeah.
And not just receiving that love, but offering it to others as well.
Yeah.
Being there for those who are hurting, providing a listening ear, a helping hand, a reminder that they're not alone in their struggles.
That's such a beautiful reminder. It's about embodying the love of Christ in our interactions with others, especially those who are going through tough times.
Yeah.
But it all starts with prioritizing our own relationship with Christ,
Right.
making that the foundation of our lives.
When our relationship with Christ is our top priority, everything else just falls into place.
Right.
Our decisions, our actions, our priorities, they all flow from that central relationship.
Like building a house on solid rock instead of shifting sand.
Yes.
Speaking of foundations, Chris also notes that believing that God is bigger than any problem is essential for overcoming challenges. It's so easy to get bogged down by our circumstances and just feel totally overwhelmed.
I can definitely relate to that.
But when we remember that God is all-powerful, that he can move mountains and part seas,
Right.
it shifts our perspective. It's like that verse in Philippians, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Yes.
It's a reminder that we don't have to rely on our own strength alone. We have access to God's limitless power. And you know what else is really cool?
What's that?
That trials, as difficult as they are, can actually be opportunities for growth and transformation.
Oh, wow.
It's like, what if we stopped viewing trials as setbacks or punishments
Right.
and started seeing them as chances to become more like Christ?
That is a powerful perspective shift.
Yeah.
Instead of fearing trials, we can embrace them as opportunities for refining, for becoming more humble, more compassionate, more resilient, more filled with God's love and grace.
It's like that analogy of refining gold in a fire.
Yes.
The heat is intense, but it purifies and strengthens the gold, making it even more valuable.
And speaking of refining, Mary Alice shares this beautiful prayer. She says, Lord, please show me how you're going to use all the misery I went through for ministry.
Wow, that's powerful. It speaks to the idea that our most painful experiences can be redeemed and used for good.
Yeah, a lot of times that redemption involves sharing our stories. Mary Alice encourages us to identify where our unique experiences might intersect with the needs of others.
Okay.
She's suggesting that by sharing our stories, even the messy parts, we can offer hope and encouragement to those who are going through similar trials.
Yeah, it's like we're all walking each other home, offering support and guidance based on the paths we've already traveled.
Exactly. And that vulnerability, that authenticity can be incredibly healing, both for ourselves and for those who hear our stories.
Yeah, it creates connection and reminds us that we're not alone in our struggles. But there's this other piece too, holding on to God's promises.
Right.
Mary Alice talks about the importance of clinging to God, to his word, and to his people, especially during trials.
It's like when we're going through tough times, it's easy to feel like God is distant
Right.
or that he's abandoned us.
Yeah.
But his word is filled with promises that he's always with us, that he'll never leave us nor forsake us.
Yeah, those promises become anchors for our souls when everything else feels uncertain. It's about trusting that God has a plan even when we can't see it. And according to Mary Alice, that plan is for our good. She emphasizes that God wants to give us good things and allow us to live life to the fullest.
That's a really encouraging reminder.
Right.
It's not about God withholding good things from us. He delights in our joy.
Yeah.
And he wants us to experience the abundant life that he designed for us.
So it's about choosing to trust his plan.
Yes.
Even when it takes us through these unexpected detours or challenges, right?
Exactly. It's about surrendering our will to his knowing that he knows what's best for us, even when we don't.
And that surrendering there, that trust can be so freeing.
It is.
It allows us to let go of the need to control everything and just rest in God's loving care.
It's about embracing the adventure of following Christ, knowing that he'll lead us to amazing places, even if the journey isn't always easy.
And speaking of journeys, one of the most important aspects of following Christ is praying without ceasing, just like Mary Alice advises. It's about making prayer a constant conversation with God.
Right.
Not just something we do when we're in trouble or need something. It's about inviting him into every aspect of our lives, sharing our joys and sorrows, our hopes and fears.
Our dreams and disappointments.
Our dreams and disappointments, exactly.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating an ongoing relationship with the one who loves us most.
And that relationship, as Mary Alice points out, is marked by God's faithfulness. She even references Joshua 21:45, which says, "Not one of all the Lord's good promises to Israel failed. Everyone was fulfilled."
What a powerful reminder.
Right.
God is faithful to his promises. Always working behind the scenes, even when we can't see it.
Yes.
And knowing that should inspire us to acknowledge all the blessings in our lives, to cultivate a heart of gratitude, even amidst challenges.
Gratitude is such a powerful antidote to negativity and discouragement.
Yeah.
When we focus on what we're grateful for, it shifts our perspective and helps us see the good even in difficult circumstances.
Yeah, it's about choosing to focus on the good, to celebrate God's faithfulness, and to find reasons to rejoice, even in the midst of challenges. And Mary Alice takes it a step further.
Okay.
She encourages us to make a list of impossible prayers and to pray them without ceasing.
Wow.
She believes that as we become more confident in God's love, we become bolder in our requests.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's a call to step out in faith, to believe that nothing is impossible with God, and to boldly approach him with our requests.
It's about recognizing that God is a God of miracles, a God who delights in exceeding our expectations.
And you know what's inspiring? Mary Alice actually started seeing those impossible prayers answered.
Wow, that's incredible. It's a testament to the power of persistent prayer and to the faithfulness of God.
It reminds us that God hears our prayers, he cares about our desires, and he's working behind the scenes to bring about his good purposes in our lives.
It's about trusting that God's timing is perfect and that he will answer our prayers in his way and in his time. Mary Alice also emphasizes the importance of pursuing God's plan for our lives in every area.
Yeah, that's seeking his guidance in our decisions, our relationships, everything. It's aligning our will with his, trusting that he knows the path that leads to true fulfillment.
It's about living a life that honors God, a life that reflects his love to the world.
Right.
And the amazing thing is when we pursue God's plan, it turns out to be far more incredible than anything we could have imagined on our own.
It's an adventure filled with purpose, meaning, and joy that's beyond anything we could conjure up ourselves.
It's experiencing the abundant life that Christ promised, a life overflowing with God's love, grace, and power. It's living a life that truly matters.
A life that makes a difference in the world and leaves a lasting legacy. But before we get ahead of ourselves, I think it's time to pause and reflect on everything we've uncovered so far.
Agreed. We've covered a lot of ground, and there's still so much more to explore. We'll pick up where we left off in part 2.